I'm Oleg Kozlovsky. I work and I'm active in the Russian pro-democracy movement. I'm one of the leaders of Solidarity democratic movement in Russia, and I've also been very active at youth movements like Oborona for the last 5 years. We were very much inspired by the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, of course, because in 2004, when it all happened in Ukraine, by that time we already realized that what we had in Russia had nothing to do with democracy. We wanted something different. But frankly, we didn't really believe that we could change anything. For most people who participated in pro-democracy movement at that time, it was either a way to have a clear conscience, just to say, okay, I tried to do something, but I failed. And for some other people, it was just a way to start their political careers. And we also believe that the youth can play an active role in bringing about this change. Because, again, before that, nobody really believed that the youth can be something independent. Everybody saw young people as somebody to distribute leaflets or just fill empty spaces at congresses. Well, we mean some very specific institutions like freedom of speech, free and fair elections, like the right to disagree with the government and be free from repression, because this is also a big problem in Russia. This is independent judiciary system. So this is, in fact, a very basic set of institutions that has to be in place for every democratic country, and that Russia lacked and, unfortunately, still lacks. I think the main feature of Oborona, especially in its first year, was that we were very different from everything that young people and people in general in Russia had seen. Because we were very blunt. We didn't try to cover our messages in some nice, innocent form or shell. We were calling spade a spade, and we were naming names. We were calling who we thought was responsible. We were the first, I think, or one of the first groups to mention the name of Putin, Russian president, as the person responsible for disintegration of democracy in the country. And it appealed to many people because people were tired of this double-speak of the so-called opposition, who, on the one hand, they called themselves opposition, but they would never criticize certain things like the president and the most important parts of his course. They would criticize certain ministers or certain governors, but not anything higher than that. And Oborona managed to grow from just a few dozen people in Moscow to a few dozen groups in different cities in Russia. We were very actively using the internet for several reasons. One, it is virtually the only open and uncensored media in Russia. Two, it is especially popular among the youth and active youth in particular. So it was quite natural for us to use blogs, especially LiveJournal, which is especially popular in Russia. The second part was street protests and different street activity, including stickers and distributing leaflets. In our protests, we often used humor. We were mocking officials, so we were staging dramatizations of different problems. Firstly, we had the website where we posted different books and manuals and guides that people could download and read. Not just activists, anybody could. And it included some books on nonviolence in general, on nonviolent conflict in general, and also some books on activism and so forth. But we also had specific programs for our activists. One of them included inviting experts to our headquarters when we had them. Then we got evicted, so the program stopped. We were inviting experts in different issues like working with the media, campaign organizing, different broader issues like democracy or judiciary system, and more specific issues like how to organize a nonviolent protest that's been banned by authorities. Another tactic that we used was organizing something like city quests or urban quests, as we call it. When we have several teams of activists, we also invite people from other organizations because we want to develop the whole community, not just our group. And they have different tasks, like you have to find a place in the city if you don't, when you don't know the address, but you do know some other things about that place, or you have to get to that area that is guarded by the police. So this is somewhere on the edge, but of course it's always non-violent, and in the end of these games the groups usually have some tasks like hanging a banner on a bridge, so something very practical, and it's also fun for activists to participate in this. But we want people to learn to act in unexpected situations and to solve unexpected problems, because it usually happens in nonviolent protests when something takes place that you could never predict. And one of the examples was at our first game. One of the tasks for the teams was to get to the area of a hospital that was surrounded by a fence, and to find a bag with a banner in a certain building in that hospital. And in fact, you could freely enter or leave the hospital. It wasn't guarded. But all the groups found their own ways. One group found a tree and they climbed onto the tree, and then they jumped over the fence. The other group found a way to get under closed gates, while they could just enter through the open gate. And it was quite funny for us to watch it, because I was outside monitoring how everything was going. But it also meant that people had to find a solution for a problem that they didn't know how to solve. Most of them had never been in such situations, had never experienced with that. And they found the solution. It wasn't the perfect one, but it worked. As we can see, Russia is still not a democratic country, so we have still a lot to do. I think one of the important things that Oborona did was a campaign against censorship on television in 2007. The campaign was called "Хватит врать, Stop Lying," and one of its messages to the youth was also to stop watching TV, because TV propaganda was really brainwashing people. And it's not just Oborona, of course, but now it became almost a common knowledge for most of the so-called advanced youth in big cities not to watch television, and TV is not considered a reliable source of information by a whole lot of people. So many more people now trust the internet more, or don't trust anything but try to take information from different sources. And I think Oborona contributed a lot to this. In May 2008, it was just one day before inauguration of Dmitry Medvedev, the current president, and we planned a protest for that day in Moscow, and that protest was banned by the authorities, as usual, unfortunately. So it never took place. There were lots of police everywhere, and I never made it to the site of the protest. Some plainclothes people arrested me a few hundred meters from that place, but then I was accused of participating in the protest that in reality never took place, and I was sentenced to 13 days in jail for disobeying police orders, although there were neither police nor orders. There were just some people in plain clothes that silently dragged me away, and I declared hunger strike, and I refused to eat through 12 days of that rest from the second day when I was convicted, and they put me into separate facility where they usually hold criminals, but I was the only person on the whole floor, so probably they considered me like a troublemaker even among the arrested, and they even tried to hide me from my lawyer and from my family who were looking for me in different places. But what was memorable about that arrest, in addition to those circumstances, was that later I managed to not only prove my innocence, but also to win compensation from the Russian government for an illegal arrest. Although the compensation was quite funny, it was like $300 for 13 days in jail, but it was I think very important symbolically, because they had to admit that this was a lie, that the police officers told the court that the court ruling was illegal, and that what they did was illegal when they held me in the jail. So it was an interesting story for me.